Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Good morning, friends. Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macy, and I am so excited to have you here on the show today. If you're a brand new listener, welcome to the podcast. And if you are a returning listener, as always, thank you so much for being here. You guys, I've had a little bit of a crazy weekend. I apologize that this episode is releasing a little bit later than normal. I was in the ER this weekend with a ruptured ovarian cyst. I didn't even know my ovaries had cysts, but it was very painful. However, I am recovering well. I want to thank everybody that has checked on me because a lot of my clients and friends and people who listen to the podcast were so helpful and loving and kind. I am 3 days out from it rupturing and I'm feeling so much better. So I wanted to get you all a podcast episode. It's just coming a little bit later than I expected. So today's topic is a big one and I'm really excited to talk about it. It's the fear of wasted time and how to trust that your growth is never in vain. I really feel like this comes up a lot for the women that I'm working with, and I want to talk about why and also reassure you that you're on the right track and you should never dismiss the work that you've done, okay? Even if you still feel like you've got a ways to go, or even if you're wanting to just continue your growth journey, be sure that you are not dismissing how far you've come. So let's talk about this because I have been on some coaching calls recently where women have come to realizations or they've had some epiphanies, and the first thought that comes out of their mouth is, man, I should have been working on this a long time ago, or I should have spent my time in the coaching program coaching on this thing, or I wish I would have known this about myself previously so that I could have been focusing on this the whole time. And it comes off as almost this regretful kind of tone where they're upset with themselves for not realizing this pivotal moment sooner. And here are some reasons why. So what I found in my coaching practice is that it does take a little bit of time for clients to really warm up and get comfortable. Now, I think a lot of people that work with me, a lot of the women that end up working with me, they've been listening to the podcast for a while, or they've been following me on social media for a while. So I do think that there is a level of safety and comfortability like right out of the gate. And I think that that's a wonderful thing. However, that doesn't mean that you just want to dig in deep right away. Sometimes I will have clients that are like, let's just rip off all the band-aids about why I'm here. And other times clients are very much surface level in the beginning, very protective, right? And it's not so much I think that they even want to be, but ego does a very good job trying to protect us from any sort of pain, any sort of emotions that we don't really enjoy feeling. So because of that, it can take a little bit for someone to really open up and be fully vulnerable and get to the root of a lot of the things that they have going on, or why their emotions are what they are, or their actions are what they are, so on and so forth, okay? So I think that that's one major reason, but also we often dismiss the amount of time that it takes to peel back layers. So I joke with my clients, but a lot of times I will tell them, when you're working on yourself, it's very much like peeling layers of an onion. And it's one of those things that does not always feel fun, but it is necessary to get to the root and the core of things. And honestly, the more that you peel back the layers, the more that you find. And I remember years ago, I had a client that described coaching specifically as the experience of walking into a warehouse that had, several hundred boxes that they could see. And they opened up the box that said, whatever it said associated with maybe some crap that they had to go through. And so they said, you know what, I'm going to tackle this box first, and I'm going to open it up and I'm going to clear it out and see what's inside. And as they opened up the box to see what's inside, it's filled with other boxes. And so they looked up from that box and realized, oh my gosh, this warehouse is full of boxes to go through. This does not feel fun. And that's kind of what coaching is like, right? You start going through a box, and then once you're through that box, you're like, okay, I've got this other box. And so a lot of times when we start our coaching journey, we're getting the little boxes out of the way, and those little boxes are often the things that allow me to get a peek into your life, to get to know you better, to learn the people involved in your life, the names of people maybe, the situations, what's been bothering you, what created, maybe an emotional uproar in your system, any thoughts that you're having trouble kind of navigating, and how you want to be better in all of those situations, okay? So that's kind of how it starts. But when clients have been with me for a little while, and a little while being, I would say a minimum of probably 6 months, but it can even be a couple of years if they choose to stick around, that's when I really start seeing the meaty versions of themselves, like the deeper things. The walls start coming down. There's more comfortability. There's more safety. They know that I have never tried to rush them in their process, that I've always, made it very vital or made it very clear that I am on this journey with them. And no matter how long it takes for them to work through something, bring up something, process something, make a decision, it's okay, because it's their life. It's not my time clock. It's not when I think anybody should. It's not what I think you should do. It's about you. And every single person's timeline of that is different. So what I have found is that when clients really start getting more comfortable, they start letting down the walls and actually pulling things to the surface that maybe they've had buried for a really long time. Or maybe they've gotten enough of those little boxes that we metaphorically kind of talked about. They've cleared out enough of those to where we start getting to the medium and large size boxes. Okay. And when you get to those medium or large size boxes, more of the deeper things start coming out of them, and you realize just how many tiny little boxes were in the way of getting to the meaty, bigger things, okay? And those meaty, bigger things are oftentimes where a lot of the pivotal, transformative moments happen, where you have those really big epiphanies and what I call drawing your line in the sand, okay? So I want to share with you this moment for me, and I think I have previously on the podcast, but just in case you are new, I went through therapy for a very long time. I started therapy at 6 years old and went through therapy all the way till 23. So 17 years I had therapy, okay, with different counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, unpacking childhood things, okay? And it would help me get through my week, my month, whatever the frequency was that I was going at that time in my life. It would help me get through, and I would feel good for a little bit of time as soon as I expelled it. And then after a few days or after a few weeks, it would suddenly feel like, oh my gosh, I'm really having trouble coping. So at 23, I took a break from therapy, and in that year, just kind of, was in the process of just navigating life. And by 24, I was introduced to my very first coach. I had no idea what a life coach was. I had no idea what they did. I had no idea the significance. I wasn't interested. I didn't feel like I needed one. I was very much like, I'm a strong, big girl. I don't need anybody's help. I'm good. And long story short, I ended up hiring the coach. And I hired the coach because of a draw my line in the sand moment, the first mini one, of realizing that I was miserable and that I was tired of doing everything by myself. Like it felt like carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders and doing it in a very heavy, daunting way that just did not feel good for my life. I knew if I continued like that, it wasn't going to be good. So that was my first draw my line in the sand moment, okay? But what really was pivotal was probably about, I would say, 8 or 9 months in. I was at my second ever coaching retreat, okay? I had had a huge transformation leading up to this retreat. And when I got there, one of the things that I had promised myself was that I was going to show up fully, meaning that I was going to be super vulnerable and I was going to be super brave and I was going to do it scared, but I was going to allow myself help and I was going to allow myself to say all the things that felt so ugly in my head and so yucky in my head because I wanted the help. And at one point, I was getting coached and my coach asked me, I said something out loud. I can't even remember what it is in this moment, but when I said it out loud, my coach responded, I have something that I can tell you that will really change your life, but it's probably going to piss you off. You are probably going to be so mad at me when I say it, and it's probably going to hurt your feelings. But if you are willing to hear it, and after I say it, I really think it's going to change the entire trajectory of your life. And I stood there stunned because I knew it was probably going to be brutal, and I knew it was probably going to be painful. However, I also really did believe that it was going to change my life. And one thing that has always been so clear to me is that I trust my coach. She always does it from a very loving place. I am not afraid of what she's going to say in the sense that I feel like it's going to ruin or damage me in any kind of way possible, right? But I very much trust that everything that she says is out of love and what she sees that my brain is protecting me from. So I took a deep breath and I prepared myself and I said, yes, I'm ready. Just tell me the hard thing. And she laid it on me, you guys. It was so horrible. And it was in front of a group of probably, 10 other women. So it was also a little bit embarrassing because I was getting coach really tough and she was holding me accountable and making me take radical responsibility for the things that I was staying victim-y on and whiny on and not being maybe fully transparent or vulnerable on, and it was horrible. I cried the rest of the day, okay, for like 8 hours straight because this was a morning coaching session, and once I start crying, I have a really hard time stopping, and I cried the rest of the day as women would just pass me at different times, whether I was walking through the kitchen or I was sitting outside, and they'd give me a pat on the back or a hug and they would be like, are you okay? I know that was really painful, but I swear that's going to change your life. And it did. It was my other draw my line in the sand moment. And the pivotal part of that is that it was the first time that I had really, truly, at my core, allowed myself to be fully seen and fully vulnerable. I had been working with my coach probably for 9, maybe 8 or 9 months at the time. And I felt safe and I felt comfortable and I felt like I could really expel the true things on my mind. And you guys, it made all the difference, okay? And when I did that, I could have had the thought I should have just come out of the gate like this to begin with. I should have, like all of this money that I've spent on coaching the last 8 or 9 months, I should have just outright said all of these things up front, because then she could have just said the hard thing up front and I wouldn't have quote unquote wasted 8 or 9 months to get here. Especially because I was already broke, right? And I was like, I really don't have all this money that I'm spending on coaching, but I believed in it so badly. I knew that it was going to change the trajectory of my life. I could just feel it in my spirit. So all of that to say is that sometimes that will happen for my clients. Some of them have been working with me for months and months. Some of them have been working with me for years. And I'm always very excited when they reach their draw the line in the sand moment, because I know that once they hit that, everything after is going to be that much more transformational in their coaching journey. That's when the real walls are let down. That's when the armor really comes off. That's when they admit to themselves the things that they have stowed away or stored away in their locker for a very long time. So I have this metaphorical locker, right? And that is where we take all of the pain and all of our hardships and all of the things we haven't wanted to work through or think about, or all of the hard emotions we haven't wanted to feel, and we bury them away in a metaphorical locker. And I feel like when clients first start to work with me, we're cleaning out the locker with the little pieces of paper or the little things that get stuffed in there. And eventually we make it to like the textbook size like the textbook size diary, essentially. And once they start going through that textbook size diary, they're like, oh my gosh, like I just realized this is probably why I've needed coaching all along. But the difference is that oftentimes they will beat themselves up for having not talked about that in the beginning. And here's what I want to remind you. You have not wasted any time, no matter how long you've been working with a therapist or a coach, or if it's me. You've not wasted any time, okay? Little by little, at a micro level, you have been growing into the woman, or if you're a guy, you've been growing into the man that could get yourself to this level of truth and vulnerability and letting your guard down. It's a really, really big deal. And it's a different timeline for every single individual. And some people, even if they've been in coaching, may never allow themselves to crack open that deeply because it feels too scary. So the moment that you realize it's happening, you're probably going to feel a little bit vomity, sweaty. Your heart might be palpitating, right? And you might feel like, oh my gosh, this is a big box for me to open. Like I am terrified. So let me give you some examples of when this moment may happen. Okay, there's a lot of different scenarios, but it may be, when the box opened that makes you realize why you've been so protective of yourself from having friends or making friends. Maybe it's the box of, oh my gosh, I'm not happy in my relationship and I want to change that. And that feels so scary to me. Okay. Maybe it's also like you've really struggled with body image for a really long time and you have the pivotal moment that makes you realize this is much more of a bigger issue than I ever realized. Okay, there's so many different scenarios with this. It's the moment sometimes my clients realize I want a divorce and I'm so afraid to say that out loud. Like I feel guilty. I feel horrible to have had these thoughts. And it's so interesting because a lot of times I'm very intuitive. A lot of times I will be able to pick up on big life changes that my clients want to make. But again, it's none of my business if they actually make them. It's none of my business, the timeline of when they do it, because coaching is not about this work feeding my ego, okay? It's not about take my advice or take it now, because coaching is not advice, okay? Every now and then we'll pop a little advice in there, but it's usually under the caveat of, I'm going to say this as a friend and not as your coach, right? Because coaching is not advice. Coaching is you getting really good at hearing what you say out loud and having someone reflect it back to you in a very neutral way so that you can figure out what you're going to do with that, okay? So it's like you, a lot of times, or we as humans, do not catch everything that we say basically like it's the news. That's always what my coach says. You said that like it's the news. And I tell my clients that all the time. And what that phrase means is that you said that, it rolled off your tongue so easily without any other thoughts that you believe that what you said is absolute truth and absolutely factual. Like you have not questioned it at all. You think you're right about that situation. And as long as you think that you're right by that situation or by what you're thinking, you're going to keep creating the result that you're getting. The problem is a lot of times the results that my clients are getting, they don't like, okay? So our results are a result of the way that we're thinking, the emotions that those thoughts are generating in our body, the actions that we take because of the emotions generated in our body, and therefore the results that we end up getting. So when someone is unhappy or not satisfied, not fully satisfied with what is going on in their life, we need to start with what their thoughts are about the thing, whatever the thing is, okay? We need to see what emotions have been stored around that situation. We need to see how they've been showing up because of those thoughts and emotions. And then we need to see what results they've created. And when they don't like the results that it's creating in their life, maybe it's creating a lot of pain, a lot of misery, it's making them, withdraw, it's making them have trouble in romantic relationships, friendships, whatever it is, we need to address it, okay? So the work of a coach is not to try to change your mind, right? It's not to say you need to do this on this timeline. It's honestly to point out this is why you are getting the result you're getting. This is what's happening in your brain. I can see it because I'm not in it with you. I'm a neutral party. This is what's happening in your brain. This is what's happening emotionally for you because of it. This is everything you're doing because of it. And this is the result that you're getting. Do you like the result? Yes or no? And when my clients say no, then we reverse engineer and we figure out what has to change. Again, it's never my business on when you change it, how you change it, or if you're actually going to do the work to change it, because I realize it's really hard. But that draw your line in the moment, okay, whenever that comes, and however long it takes for you to get to that moment, okay, you have to trust that you have not wasted any time investing in your mental or emotional health any time that it took you to get to that moment. And that moment can happen multiple times. I also have clients who have had that moment multiple times. Like maybe the first time that they had it is when they realized they were in a toxic relationship, whether it was a family member, a friend, a romantic partner. And then they work on themselves and they heal and they work on, I never want to attract that, type of toxicity in my life ever again. And then their next draw their line in the sand moment is when they realize, I want to be with someone who values me. I want to be in love. I want to be married, or I want really strong friendships. I want to love myself. I want to love my body. I want to love my life. Okay, that can be the next big epiphany. And what's not going to be helpful is if you're shaming yourself along the way and saying, gosh, I've been working with you for 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and I feel like I should be light years further than where I am. Why is it taking me so long? Why am I not getting it? Why are other people who've been working with you less time getting it faster? Why are they growing faster? And it's because all of our brains have different levels at which it's trying to protect us. Some of us have very stubborn, very protective brains and very protective egos. Like we do not want to feel uncomfortable emotions at all. That sounds like hell, okay? Other people are willing to feel the things a little bit more deeply and a little bit more quickly, and therefore they'll move through things a little bit more, quickly. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen. I remember this being the case with my coach and one of her best friends who is also a coach. So she would share this story back when I, was coaching with my coach as a client. And so one of the things that she would always say is that when my coach would get coached, okay, she often felt a lot of resistance. Like her brain would throw a fit and have a total tantrum, and she would hear the coaching, but it wouldn't necessarily land. It would be like, yeah, but, and she'd always have an argument for her coach and why she was doing the things that she was doing and why it was, going to take her longer and why she couldn't implement the strategies faster. And she just said her brain would freak out like a freaking toddler. And she would just be like, oh, I can't go do those things because of this. And there would be excuses and negativity around the coaching. And her brain would just fight to be the same version of itself. It just felt way too painful to change certain things, even though she wanted them to change. And then she would go and talk to one of her best friends who's also a coach, but would get coached as well. And she said when her friend would get coached, her friend's response was always, okay, I'm going to implement it immediately. Like, I'm just going to feel like hell and implement it immediately. And she would be so frustrated because she would think, how is my friend growing so fast? And she would recognize like, oh, she's growing so fast because even if there is some resistance, she just feels the resistance and takes the coaching anyways. She implements the coaching anyways. Like, she might feel internally like a toddler screaming, but she will do all of the coaching like regardless. So because of that, there's different levels to people's growth. I have clients that take a little bit longer because their brain is super resistant, super scared, super fearful. They're still building a lot of belief that things can be different for themselves in whatever capacity that means for them. And then I have other clients who are like ready to ready to race out of the gate. And they will say the most vulnerable, and you could call it personal things right out of the gate, because they're like, I'm so sick of myself. I'm so sick of being in this cycle. I'm so sick of not living the life that I desire. I'm so sick of not feeling fulfilled that I'm ready for this to change right now. And they will grow leaps and bounds very quickly because of that mentality that they have. But the overall message that I want you to take away from this is that you don't ever have to worry about any of your time being wasted when you have that moment where you realize, oh my gosh, this is the thing that I've probably needed coaching on the whole time. This is the thing I should have been talking about the whole time. If you've ever felt that way, I just want to give you a big hug and tell you that every little micro thing you've shared, whether big or little, no matter how long it has taken, you're right where you're supposed to be. You've been growing into this version that you've needed to be to pull yourself to this stage of your growth. And you really do have to trust that none of your journey, no matter how long it's been, has been in vain. Okay, you have had to grow into this woman to get yourself to this level of vulnerability and to be available for the messages at this level. That's the thing too, is that our growth, sometimes we're not ready for the message our first 12 weeks into coaching or 6 months into coaching or a year into the coaching. We are not ready. Like if my coach would have said what she said to me a month into coaching, even if I were vulnerable, honestly, I probably would have stopped coaching because it would have felt so terrible to receive it. I wouldn't have known her as well, right? And I might have felt personally attacked because of how terrible it felt. Like, I don't know. But what I do know is that by the time she was ready to say it, I was ready to receive it. And it still felt like ass. But I wasn't running away from what she told me. I had grown into the woman that could take it, even though it was painful, even though I cried the rest of the day. Okay. And because of that, I became a lot stronger in the messages I was able to receive after that, in the coaching I was able to take after that. And that's only been built upon year after year after year of coaching and therapy, right? 9 years later of still continuing this journey. My capacity to hear the hard thing is much better today than it was 9 years ago when I started with her. Okay. So you have to pat yourself on the back and recognize that if you're committed to your growth, there are probably going to be layers that you uncover within yourself at different stages. And there are going to be, several draw your line in the sand moments. And there are going to be moments where you think, gosh, this was buried so deep inside of myself, I didn't even realize, but I wish I had learned about it sooner. But I just want to assure you, you're right on time. You are right on time, because today, whenever that day is that you have that feeling, you have grown into the woman who can take the hard things. Okay, you have. And as long as you don't quit when that hard coaching comes, it's only going to go up from here. Okay, so you have to trust yourself, trust the vulnerability, trust you being able to share your truth, trust the person you're choosing to work with. Trust that it's all working in your favor all the time, and it has from the very beginning, from day 1 all the way to day 365 or any time after that. It's all right on time. Okay? All right. Now, I am here to help you if you need anything at all. If you ever want to pursue your coaching journey, all you have to do is schedule a 60-minute consult, and we'll talk about what could be the best option for you, if that's one-on-one private coaching, if that is one of my group programs, if that is a standalone retreat. And speaking of standalone retreat, this is very last minute, so you would definitely have to have a wild hair up your butt to listen to this today and decide to come to the retreat. But next week, February 26th, through March 2nd, I am hosting a women's coaching retreat in St. George, Utah. Okay. And I have a $500 off coupon. So if you by chance listen to this today and you're like, I need to go mingle with like-minded women, I need to give myself the gift of self-care. I want to have fun. I want to laugh. I want to meet other women who are doing this work. I want to coach in person with Macy. I want all of that for myself. If you get that wild hair, just know that you can sign up on the website, macyrenee.com, under the St. George Women's Retreat tab. And if you use the code, all caps, me time, it will take $500 off of the price. Okay. And then you will get an email with where you can fly into airport wise. I will just tell you there's, I think it's called St. George Regional Airport. If you want to fly into St. George directly, it's a smaller, like I said, it's a regional airport. The other option is to fly into Las Vegas if that's a cheaper option for you, and then driving the 1 hour and I think 40 minutes to get to St. George. So I have clients that are doing a little bit of both. Some of them are flying right into the regional airport, which is like 15 minutes from where we're staying, or some are flying into Las Vegas and going to take the drive, the hour and 40-minute drive to get to St. George. So those are the options, but you would get an email with all of those details. If you have any questions, you can always message me. If you're on my social media, you can email me. My email is coaching@macyrenee.com, or you can even schedule a consult if you would like. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Bye. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macyrenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.